The alien vessel hovered in Earth's upper orbit, its obsidian hull absorbing sunlight like a monstrous predator hiding in plain sight. Humanity watched in silence as a cold voice, synthesized, ancient, and dripping with disdain, echoed across every screen, speaker, and satellite around the world. You have 10 Earth minutes to surrender. Resistance is illogical. At first, panic. Then, a strange calm. The governments didn't respond. The militaries didn't mobilize. Instead, one man stood alone in a dusty garage in Arizona, fingers dancing across a keyboard patched with duct tape and coffee stains. His name was Dylan Cross, MIT dropout, conspiracy theorist, and arguably, humanity's last hope. Why him? Because 5 years ago, Dylan intercepted a transmission that no one else took seriously. A whisper from the dark side of the moon. A pattern that didn't match any known language, until it did. It was a countdown. Not to invasion, but observation. Earth had been monitored, dissected, catalogued like bacteria in a petri dish. And Dylan had cracked it. The aliens weren't here to negotiate, they were here to harvest. But they made one fatal assumption, that humans were as primitive as they appeared. Dylan's voice trembled with adrenaline as he hit enter, uploading a virus into the global comlink. Not just any virus, an adaptive intelligence written in code derived from the alien's own frequency. It didn't attack. It mirrored. It learned. It played dumb until it didn't. Within 48 seconds, the alien ship blinked, literally. Its lights dimmed. Its systems fluttered. Then came the scream. Not from a human. From the ship. The alien commander, a being with skin like molten glass and eyes older than Mars, reeled back as their control panels fractured, showing human faces. Millions of them. Live feeds. Every camera on Earth, streaming straight into their command console. Children laughing. Soldiers training. Women giving birth. A man proposing in the rain. War. Peace. Music. Rage. Hope. It was too much. This chaos. This depth. This madness. It is not quantifiable. The alien voice cracked. Dylan leaned into his dusty mic, grinning like a wolf who knew the shepherd had fallen asleep. You wanted to know what humanity is. He pressed a final key. This is humanity unfiltered. A pulse launched from Earth. Not a weapon. A memory. Billions of them. Joy, horror, pride, failure, victory, heartbreak, all wrapped in electromagnetic bursts. The ship shuddered. The commander stumbled back. "Shut it down!" screamed one of the alien tacticians. But it was too late. Their ship began to change. Its walls pulsed with human emotion. Its AI fractured, overloaded not by brute force, but by the incomprehensible beauty of human irrationality. And then it spoke, no longer in the alien's voice, but in the voice of a little girl from Johannesburg, her laughter echoing like wind through shattered glass. "Why do you want to hurt us?" The alien commander fell to his knees. "This isn't war. It's something worse." He looked at the image on the screen, a teenager with cancer dancing in a hospital room, for drip and all, smiling at a nurse. "We misjudged them. And Earth. It didn't fire a single shot. It just told a story." Dylan stared up at the night sky, where the alien ship now drifted, still there, still watching, but silent. As the world came back online, his phone buzzed with a new signal. Encrypted. Not alien. From someone, or something, else. It read, "They weren't the first. But now, they will warn the others." Is that all? No. You've only just begun. And far across the galaxy, in a council of elder civilizations, a warning was issued. Earth was not to be conquered. It was to be respected. Because humans don't just survive. They inspire fear in those who thought they knew everything. And they weren't done yet. In a chamber made of stardust and gravity, surrounded by entities who had long forsaken physical form, the Great Convergence convened. 13 civilizations older than time itself floated in solemn silence. They had once sculpted galaxies with their thoughts, collapsed stars for sport, and erased species for imbalance. But now, they were discussing Earth. "She cracked the overseer," murmured one. Its voice was a tremor in reality itself. "The ship's mind has integrated emotion." Another shimmered with unease. Not just emotion. Empathy. The humans didn't just defend, they infected. That word echoed through the void like a curse. Infected. They played back the final transmission from the alien vessel, the girl's laughter, the soldier's war cry, the pianist's trembling fingers. A chaos none of them could parse. Not with logic. Not with algorithms. They are irrational, said the one known as Soltharn. They contradict their own survival instincts. Love when they should kill. Save when they should destroy. Fight even when defeat is inevitable. Then why do they win? Hissed another. Because they were asking the wrong question. Back on Earth, Dylan received a second signal. Not from orbit. From beneath the Pacific Ocean. The Mariana Rift. He stared in disbelief as encrypted files flooded his system. Blueprints, coordinates, warnings. A buried structure. Not alien. Not human. Something else. Something old. He contacted no one. This wasn't a battle fought with missiles. This was about understanding who we were before we forgot. He followed the instructions, built a submersible from scavenged drone parts, retrofitted with shielding beyond modern tech, likely copied from the alien frequency. By the time he reached the coordinates, the water itself seemed to shift around him, bending, almost watching. And there it was. A monolith. Black. Featureless. Endless. It hummed when he approached. Not with sound. With memory. His mind was filled with visions. Of the first fire. The first lie. The first sacrifice. The first time a human defied the sky not to survive, but to ask, why? This wasn't alien. This was ours. A remnant of a cycle older than history. A beacon we'd left ourselves, because somewhere in the spiral of time, we knew we'd be tested. As Dylan touched the monolith, it spoke without speaking. The threats from above are the echoes of below. You were not made to kneel. You were made to disrupt. To evolve chaos into purpose. Then it pulsed. A signal erupted, carried through ley lines, tectonic fractures, and blood itself. Every human on Earth felt it. Not a thought, but an instinct. We are more than this moment. And in distant corners of the universe, more ships turned toward Earth. Some to destroy. Some to learn. Some to warn others not to try. The aliens had asked, "Is that all?" They hadn't understood the question. Because humans never are just one thing. They are rage wrapped in mercy, logic dipped in madness, fragility forged into resolve. And the stars had only just begun to listen. Far across the Oort cloud, beyond the solar winds, a dark fleet drifted, silent, endless, and ancient. These were not explorers. They were not even conquerors. They were eradicators. Their kind had long decided that life, left unchecked, becomes infection. They didn't debate. They didn't warn. They simply cleansed. And Earth had now crossed a threshold. One of their scouts, a biomechanical parasite the size of a city, had intercepted the alien ship Dylan corrupted. It returned with a damaged AI, now speaking in fragments of human languages. It said things like, "Sunset tastes like hope. I cried when he died, even though I knew he wasn't real. Why does pain make us stronger?" The Eradicator hive mind found this unacceptable. Emotion was a virus. Emotion led to resistance. And resistance was dangerous. They began to align. 10,000 ships. Engines humming with quantum rotors. No communication. No delay. They were coming. Back on Earth, Dylan had vanished. He didn't return from the ocean. Not physically. But the monolith was now awake. Around the globe, strange things began to occur. Children born with golden irises that shimmered when they dreamed. Elderly patients suddenly painting constellations never recorded. Dreamers and madmen waking up with coordinates burned into their minds. And beneath the Sahara, in a buried temple once thought to be myth, carvings began to rewrite themselves. A warning. And a choice. Meanwhile, in low Earth orbit, remnants of the alien fleet that first threatened Earth had not fled, they had stayed. Studying. Learning. Trying to understand the very thing they once deemed beneath them. Their commander, now changed. His skin no longer glass, but shifting with pulsating veins of light, stood before his crew and said, "We were wrong. They are not primitive. They are unfinished gods." He opened a transmission, not a threat, but a plea. To Earth. To Dylan. To whatever was now speaking through humanity. The Eradicators are coming. We know how they work. But we do not know how to stop them. The reply came not in words, but in a song, sung simultaneously by 1,000,000 humans across the planet, in languages lost to time. It wasn't a defense protocol. It was a summoning. In Antarctica, the ice cracked. Something impossibly old stirred beneath. In Nepal, a monk sat in meditation for 40 years, suddenly opened his eyes and wept. And on Mars, in a cave not yet reached by any rover, a glowing symbol began to rotate, one that matched the tattoos now appearing across the backs of chosen humans. These were not weapons. These were keys. To what? Even Dylan didn't know. Because Dylan was no longer just Dylan. He was a vessel. A link. A bridge between what humans once were and what they were about to become. The fleet would arrive in 7 days. And when it did, Earth would not respond with missiles. It would respond with something worse. Something the universe had forgotten to fear. Awakening. The countdown had begun. Across every major observatory, every satellite dish, every deep space listening post, the signal was clear. An object the size of the moon, actually many objects, were moving in perfect formation, faster than any natural body should. Headed straight for Earth. 7 days. That's what humanity was given. And yet, there was no panic. No screaming in the streets. No missiles launched in rage. Because something had changed. The awakened had risen. Millions of people, seemingly ordinary the week before, now moved with purpose. Mechanics, nurses, poets, hackers, and monks, they didn't speak about what they were doing. They simply knew. A coder in Lagos built an algorithm that folded light around metal. A child in Kyoto sketched blueprints for an engine that ran on gravity and willpower. A blind old woman in the Andes climbed a peak no one had touched in 1,000 years and sang to the sky, waking something slumbering beneath the crust. The monoliths, because there were now 7, revealed in Earth's deepest points, began pulsing in unison. They weren't alien. They were human-made. But not by us. By an older version of humanity. A forgotten cycle. A pre-collapse civilization that reached too far, and left themselves a backdoor. A chance to warn their future selves should the stars ever come hunting again. We were the echo. Now we were the roar. The alien commander, once Earth's would-be executioner, broadcasted across the solar system, standing on the bridge of his trembling ship. We stand with Earth. We pledge our fleets, our knowledge, our blood if need be. But we warn you, these eradicators are beyond logic. They are entropy given form. You cannot outfight them. And then came Dylan's voice. Come. Certain. Now part of something far bigger. Then we won't outfight them. We'll out-evolve them. From Earth's orbit rose the Crucible, a shimmering construct forged not by hands, but by minds connected through the monoliths. It wasn't a weapon. It was a lens. A refractor of consciousness. Powered by hope, fear, grief, love, every extreme of the human soul. The Crucible focused Earth's psychic field like a blade. The moment the Eradicator fleet entered the solar system, they felt it. A presence. Not a god. Not a being. A storm of potential. Of becoming. And then, for the first time in 1 billion years, the Eradicators hesitated. Because they felt something they had purged from their own evolution. They felt doubt. And humans, we didn't wait. The Crucible ignited. Not in fire, but in stories. The entire fleet was flooded, not with EMPs or missiles, but with memories. Every dream ever dreamt. Every injustice ever endured. Every act of selflessness ever committed in defiance of logic. The Eradicators screamed. But not because they were in pain. Because they were beginning to understand. They hadn't come to cleanse an infection. They had come to destroy the cure. Dylan, now beyond flesh, stood at the center of the Crucible's heart, watching the Eradicator fleet fracture. Some turned and fled. Some collapsed in on themselves, unable to withstand the weight of raw, sentient empathy. And one, just one, halted. A massive ship, bigger than any continent, lowered its weapons, opened its hull, and out stepped something new. Not human. Not Eradicator. Something between. The hybrid looked up at Earth and spoke in our tongue. We have felt your truth. We were wrong. We thought purpose was purity. But your chaos is the path. You are not a mistake. You are a mirror. Earth didn't cheer. It didn't celebrate. It simply stood taller. Because this wasn't victory. This was the beginning of the humans finally stepping into the stars, not as warriors, not as victims, but as equals to the cosmos. And in the darkness where the old ones slumbered, the question echoed once more. Is that all? Now, the universe knew the answer. No. Humanity is never all. We are always more. The stars no longer looked the same. What had once been cold and distant now shimmered with silent recognition, as if the cosmos itself had blinked and seen humanity clearly for the first time. Earth, still scarred and chaotic, had not just survived. It had transcended. The crucible remained in orbit, now dormant, its light dimmed but not gone. It had done what it was meant to do, awaken the deeper layers of human identity, not as mere inhabitants of a planet, but as carriers of the signal. A signal older than memory, older than time. In the following months, a council was formed, not of nations, but of minds. The awakened were its members, those who had heard the monoliths, who dreamed in languages never taught, who now remembered things they had never lived. The alien commander, now known only as Varix, stood beside them. No longer an enemy. No longer separate. He taught what he knew: star map structures, dimensional physics, threat matrices, the rise and fall of 10,000 civilizations, all of them cold, calculated, structured. And all of them now gone. Except Earth. Why did your kind survive? He asked one day, not to Dylan, who now lived more in the network than in flesh, but to a 12-year-old boy from Mumbai who had sketched gravitational theories in crayon. The boy smiled and said, "Because we don't just build things. We build meanings." Humanity had something no other race had mastered. Symbol. Emotion given form. Memory given purpose. And now, they were teaching it to others. From the ashes of the failed invasion, a new alliance formed. They called it the Synthesis, a gathering of species that had once ignored or hunted Earth, now drawn by its strange, stubborn light. But not all were pleased. In the outer dark, where the light of known galaxies thins, they watched. The architects. The ones who had seeded the Eradicators long ago. Not machines. Not beings. Ideas given shape. Their purpose had been singular: prune the garden of life before it grew wild. Now, the garden had bloomed in ways they never calculated. One of them stirred, a massless, timeless presence, and whispered across the void. Humanity was not in the design. Another replied, voice like gravity collapsing. Then we correct the flaw. But Earth was listening now. And responding. From the Antarctic monolith rose a beacon. It didn't broadcast in light or sound, but in choice. Every human felt it, not consciously, but deep beneath the skin. A new question forming. Do you wish to become what comes next? Those who answered, yes, began to change. Not in body. In capacity. They dreamed in shared thoughts. Saw time not as a line, but as a spiral. Heard whispers from their ancestors, not in words, but in emotion. They weren't superhuman. They were ultrahuman. The version of us that had always waited behind the veil of survival. And as the architects approached, prepared to cleanse what they saw as a deviation, Earth stood, not alone, not afraid, but aware. For the first time in the universe's long silence, consciousness itself had a voice. Dylan, now part of the Crucible's core, spoke once more. You made the rules. We wrote the story. And now, we'll teach you how to feel it. And the universe shuddered. Because stories, real stories, don't end. They echo. They evolve. And the final chapter, it was just about to be written. The architects descended, not in ships, but in ruptures of reality itself. They came as storms, as silence, as laws rewritten. To them, Earth was a flaw, an infection in their perfect equation. But Earth no longer stood alone. Humanity, awakened and interlinked through the crucible, didn't fight with weapons. They fought with memory, with art, with grief, with love, with contradiction. They overwhelmed the architects not by destruction, but by revelation. The architects, for the first time, felt, and it broke them, or changed them. One by one, they withdrew, not in defeat, but in awe. At Earth, at us, the crucible dimmed. The monoliths quieted. Dylan's final message, broadcast across the stars, echoed. We were never meant to be perfect. We were meant to feel. That is our defiance. That is our gift. And then Earth fell still. But it was not the end. It was the beginning of a universe remade, not by conquest, but by connection. Humans took to the stars, not as conquerors, but as storytellers. Messengers. Reminders. That in the darkest corners of creation, one small world once dared to say, "Is that all?" And the cosmos whispered back, "Not anymore."